If you asked for the simplest way to beat inflation in 2026, you don't need a complicated product or a secret hedge fund. You need two types of assets: your own earning power and ownership in businesses that can raise prices without constantly eating cash. Everything else is just details. People expect me to say gold tips or some clever trade when inflation comes up. Instead, I keep saying the same unfashionable thing. The best protection against inflation is your own personal earning power. The second best is to own businesses that don't require a lot of capital and can raise prices in 2026. If you get those two right, you're already ahead of most professionals. Let's walk through what that actually means for an ordinary investor. Section 120, the first asset, your own earning power for decades. I've said some version of this. The best protection against inflation is your own earning power. No one can take your talent away from you. If you do something valuable and good for society, it doesn't matter what the US dollar does. That's not a slogan, it's arithmetic. When you become very good at something people truly need, keep getting better over time. Stay useful through changes in technology and policy. You build an asset inside your own head and hands that can't be directly taxed the way a capital gain is. Can't be marked down 30% in a bad quarter. Usually reprices upward as the cost of living rises. In a world where cash in the bank might earn 23% after tax. Inflation is expected to average something above 3%, maybe in the 2.8, 3.5% range through 2026. Your human capital is often the only thing that can reliably outgrow that gap. If you're good at what you do, really good, your income over a decade can grow by 50%, 100% or more. That beats any bond ladder. That's why when people ask how to protect themselves, my first answer isn't a ticker symbol. It's become exceptionally good at something because those skills cannot be inflated away. Section 24, the second asset, businesses with pricing power and low capital needs. At one of our meetings, when inflation was the topic, I added a second piece. The second to best approach is to own businesses through stocks or otherwise that don't require a lot of capital and can raise prices without losing customers. Why those two features? Because in an inflationary world, capital is expensive. The cost of equipment, buildings, and working capital goes up with inflation. If a business has to constantly pour more money into just maintaining its position, owners don't see much benefit from higher prices. Take two simple businesses: an asset-heavy utility or factory that must spend billions on plant, property, and equipment. When inflation doubles its nominal revenues, it often has to double what it spends on equipment, maintenance, and inventory just to stand still. An asset-light brand or platform, a software firm, a consumer brand, a network business. When inflation pushes prices up, it can often raise prices with only modest increases in capital spending. More of the higher revenues flows through to owners. That difference is why I've liked strong consumer brands with pricing power and low capital needs. Think of companies that can nudge prices up on drinks, snacks, or household products with only small extra cost. Asset-light models like software and networks, where once the system is built, each additional customer doesn't require a new factory. In inflation, you want to own claims on cash flows that can rise with prices without demanding a river of new capital every year. So my two favorite inflation fighters have been the same for years: your own earning power, businesses with low capital needs and real pricing power. Now, what does that actually mean for you right now when you log into a brokerage app or think about your career? First, understand the environment. Most outlooks heading into 2026 describe inflation as sticky, a low-grade fever, not a crisis, but above the 2% target, with estimates around 2.8, 3.5% for the next couple of years. Rates may come down from their peaks, but not back to zero. That has consequences. Cash and short-term bonds are safer, but often barely beat inflation after tax. Asset-heavy businesses with regulated pricing or high maintenance costs may not deliver much real return. So, as a small investor, the implications are: avoid pouring your savings into assets that constantly need more capital just to keep up. High capex, low Y. Margin businesses that don't really benefit you when prices rise. Favor ownership of businesses directly or through funds that have strong brands or strategic moats, don't need huge reinvestment to grow. Can pass on cost increases by nudging prices up without losing customers. And remember, you don't have to find each company by hand. For many people, a broad index fund tilted toward quality does that sorting automatically. But above all, don't let fear push you into hiding everything in cash, chasing yield in complex products, or betting the farm on whatever is being sold as the inflation hedge of the week. Back to basics, human capital and good businesses. Section 40, Buffett in 2026 mini portfolio idea. If I were an ordinary investor in 2026, not running Berkshire, just building a life, here's roughly what my 2 asset anti-inflation playbook would look like. It has 3 pieces, but 2 of them are the core assets we've just discussed. Piece 1, self-investment, as the core position. I would treat my own skills as my largest holding. Pick 1 or 2 high-value skills and commit 3 to 5 years to becoming much better at them. Study my industry so I could move toward roles with more responsibility and pricing power. Improve my communication so I could explain ideas, lead projects, and negotiate. Financially, I'd frame that as a certain number of hours per week, our capital expenditure on my own human capital books, courses, deliberate practice. The goal is to raise my pre-tax earnings faster than inflation for as long as I work. That's my hedge number 1. Piece 2, broad equity exposure focused on quality with my savings. I'd want the second asset, ownership in businesses that benefit from inflation rather than being crushed by it. For most people, that means a broad equity index fund as the foundation, because owning a slice of productive businesses is still one of the best long-term inflation hedges we know. If I wanted to tilt a bit, I'd favor funds or stocks with a bias toward high return on capital, strong brands, or network effects. Low capital expenditure needs relative to earnings. Examples in principle, not specific recommendations, consumer companies that sell everyday products and can raise prices a little each year. Software or platform businesses where adding users doesn't require building more factories. The idea is simple. When inflation pushes prices up, I want businesses that can match or exceed that rise in their revenues without needing to shove all of it into new concrete and steel. Piece 3, select sensible real asset exposure, not hoarding cash finally, instead of hoarding cash just in case. I'd keep enough cash or short-term bonds for an emergency fund and near-term needs. Consider modest exposure to sensible real assets, things with intrinsic use and income, not just speculation. That might be a well-bought home I actually live in for many years. A small slice of real estate securities tied to properties with real demand. The key is not buying just because real estate always goes up. Buying because at this price and with these cash flows, the asset makes sense in a world where money slowly loses value. Add it up, and your mini portfolio in 2026 looks like you 20'd your skills and earning power improving every year. Quality businesses find access mostly through broad, low-cost equity funds, maybe with a tilt toward high return, low CAPEX, pricing power companies. Sensible real assets and liquidity solely, enough cash for safety, plus any real estate that stands on its own economics. No heroics, just aligning yourself with the things inflation tends to reward. Section 5T Floyd, what to avoid in 2026. Just as important as what to own is what to treat with caution. In an inflationary, noisy environment, I'd be especially careful about assets that look safe but lose buying power, large long-term holdings of low-yield cash or bonds that don't keep up with inflation after tax. Businesses that eat capital, companies that must continuously pour huge sums into plant and equipment just to stand still, especially if their pricing power is limited. Complex inflation products with high fees, anything that promises magic inflation protection, but quietly siphons off 1% a year in costs. Inflation is unforgiving. A 3% fee in a 3% inflation world is like running with weights on your ankles. Remember my basic rule, it's far better to buy a wonderful company at a fair price than a fair company at a wonderful price. In an inflation era, it's also far better to own wonderful skills and wonderful businesses than to hoard what looks safe and slowly becomes worth less. Section 6 dive, bringing it back to you. So if you're an ordinary investor in 2026 and you want a simple Buffett-style plan to beat inflation, here's the summary in plain language. First asset, your own earning power. Become great at something useful. No one can tax or inflate away that progress. Second asset, ownership of businesses that don't chew through capital and can raise prices. You access that mainly through quality stocks or funds. Everything else, commodities, timing trades, complicated products, is optional. Those two are not. Stop asking, what's the perfect inflation hedge? And start asking, am I getting better at something the world needs And am I regularly buying into businesses that benefit when prices rise? If the answer to both is yes, inflation in 2026 becomes something to manage, not something to fear.